days and 40 nights in Yemen, and she joins us now live from Cairo. Thanks for being with us. And of course, you and I spoke just yesterday as this deadly crackdown was unfolding. Now that you've had time to look back, what are your thoughts?
I think, like with every Egyptian today, we're all a little shocked at the escalation of the violence across the country. And so much blood has been shed. The Ministry of Health puts the death toll at 278, including 43 officers, which obviously means that the death toll is much higher. The burning of churches, the extreme hatred we can witness from Egyptians turning against Egyptians, I think is the scariest part of all this. Not just the violence, which unfortunately was very high, but a lot of us have become a little used to, but just the sense of Egyptians being happy. I've heard the phrase, thank God they've cleaned out the square from so many people, and it's been shocking to me that Egyptians could be saying this about Egyptians. And the consequences of that are very far-reaching. So it's not just the infrastructure of Egypt or the curfew or the blocking trains or the banks closing or the stock market, all these consequences. It's actually, what does this mean for Egypt in terms of, are we moving really forward towards a civil war? Today is not going to be, a lot of people were hopeful because no one was in the streets last night, but I'm actually much less optimistic. I think this isn't just going to go away very quietly. And when people talked about dispersing the sit-in, the problem with dispersing it is that what happens is that they only end up regrouping, growing in size, radicalizing, attracting wider public sympathy, and then cause the dominant the rhetoric of the Islamists to become even more uncompromising. And already we've started seeing smaller sit-ins in Mahdi and other areas of Cairo beginning again. So far, it's just very, very, very black day, what Egyptians would call a black day.
Indeed it is, and of course we are watching these disturbing images of rows of dead bodies, of the destruction of a city there, a divided, polarized country. But at the same time, we see these astonishing images of women taking their place amid this violence. And of course, we need to bring up that particular image of the woman standing in front of that bulldozer, if we have it there, in stopping it actually in the path, about to roll over that young man. Hopefully we have that image if we can bring it up. But it's just, there are so many astounding images of women. Let's look at their role in this.
Well, definitely women have been playing a much more active role since the 2011 revolution. But I actually wanted to comment on that image because I think it's a very good example of how you can't really be 100% certain of the images or reports that you hear, because there's actually another image of that same picture taken from a different angle 5 minutes later of one of the army officers coming over and helping the woman. So whether either picture, which one is the true, this is the thing, unless you're actually on the ground, and you can't possibly be around the entire country, you can't actually verify that what's happening is really true. But definitely women have been playing, I personally know a lot of my female friends who were on the front lines. We all know, unfortunately, now someone who's died. The journalist who died yesterday from Gulf News, she was only 26, she was young, and so many also, I hate to put it this way, but women who are actually on the front lines too, and they're not shielding back, they're not holding back just because they're women. There's no longer this kind of discrimination, and unfortunately it only takes place when violence, because you still have the sexual harassment still very high. But when it comes to death, I guess you're still dead, whether you're a woman or a man.
That's right, and you talked a little earlier there about some portions of Egyptian society happy that people have been cleared out, and we hear how you feel about that, and clearly you're not, you don't feel the same way. And Mohammed El Baradei, the interim vice president, I mean, he has handed in his resignation. He does not want to be a part of this. Could this be a turning point, or do you see an inevitability here, a march towards civil war?
See, I've personally never been a big supporter of the Muslim Brotherhood, but as with many Egyptians, I cannot say that killing them or that the violence is in any way there's any justification for it. And there were heavy losses on both sides. You know, even one of the Muslim Brotherhood leaders, his 16-year-old daughter, has been allegedly killed. The violence, you know, the prime minister, when he was finance minister under the events of Masfiru, he resigned, and the death count was nothing compared to this. But you had him come over yesterday, and there was no resignation. The Noor party, which is the Salafi party, over the night, they called for his resignation and for the entire cabinet, and actually quoted this, saying that you resigned when there was no death count. What's happened now? And you have a very scary press conference by the Ministry of Interior very late at night, around 10 p.m., not very late, but around 10 p.m., and he had a quote which was very scary, I think. He talked about how security will be restored to this nation as if it were before January 25th, which in retrospect, you know, you think we've been through all of this, and now have what we accomplished just taken us right back to square one, only with so much loss to Egypt and to Egyptians. And I think the biggest or the scariest development we have is this, the Egyptians turning on Egyptians. It's the burning of almost 45 churches. You know, what does this mean? You have someone crack down on you, bully you, and then you turn and you look towards who's weaker than you. And what does that mean for minorities or even for women? And the real underlying problems, which is the ideological division and the free-falling economy, of course, those problems are only going to get worse. You've lost the potential for political compromise now, obviously. And there's a huge portion of Egyptians who are very much swing voters. You run the risk now of them moving back towards the Islamists, actually, or towards complete apathy and just not doing anything. You have the international community, their kind of support. I very much doubt that the military or the police, and it's still not very quite, of course, the military is in control, but the role of the police and how they've been working together could have gone forward without at least some kind of green light or feeling that they would be supported. But again, you know, this isn't the time of an age where autocrats, they could invoke the notion of, you know, national sovereignty and avoid interference from the international community when they repress their own citizens. That doesn't happen anymore. So the international community and how they react will be very important. You know things are bad when Hamas denounces you. But again, it's not in the best interest of the U.S. to call this a coup. But they are considering canceling the Bright Star military exercise. So that's a step. But I guess how things develop will show what the military is going to do in the following days.
All right. Ethar El Katatney, thank you for sharing your perspective on this. Appreciate it.
Thank you.